It's a brisk Saturday morning in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and a running group makes its way up a steep hill. It's a challenging part of the trail, but for one of these runners, it's nothing compared to the obstacles that he's had to face at various points in his life. He's just happy to be there.
My name is Ira Brownridge Jr. I am located in Ypsilanti, Michigan, which is the town next door to Ann Arbor.
As a specialist, Ira served for 10 years in the Army, a few of those in active duty, and the rest in the Michigan National Guard. On April 1st, 2007, he and some of his fellow soldiers in the 125th Infantry Battalion found themselves in the thick of things in Iraq. Ira was normally a gunner on a Humvee, but on that day, he was conducting his first dismount mission on foot. And what happened next would change his life.
We had an ambush that night and had a round ricochet up into my Kevlar. Came up and then went back in and kind of got shot in the head. So the long way of saying I got shot in the head.
He was rushed to a hospital in Iraq and then flown to Walter Reed for treatment. He eventually made his way back to Michigan, but the path to recovery was a difficult one.
I was actually still going through my rehab because I still had like some side effects from being injured and stuff like that. So I was still working on my like speech therapy. I was still doing a KT, and I was still trying to learn writing and stuff like that with my hands.
Though the physical recovery was tough, for Ira, the emotional part was even harder. He became a hermit, barely leaving his house. He withdrew from his friends and family. He fell out of shape.
At the time, I was wearing close to 250 pounds, and I'm only 5'5" on the best day of my life. So I'm like, yeah, this is probably not healthy.
And he also developed another problem along the way.
I'll go to the bar, drink. I'll stay at home, drink. And I'm like, well, there's sports on TV. So, I'm being responsible because I'm not going driving anywhere.
Life was pretty dark for Ira. And then someone from the VA recommended he take part in an event put together by a new organization called Team Red, White, and Blue. TeamRWB, as it's otherwise called, is a nonprofit group that hosts events like fun runs for veterans and people from the community, bringing them together. Ira was, to say the least, a little skeptical.
I think we was going to a Tigers game and kind of met other people from TeamRWB, and then they was like, hey, we got a run group. And I was like, yeah, I don't do this running thing. I was like, I'm not in the military anymore. I don't have to run. But wound up going to the run group and then meeting other people. And then I started running. The next thing I'm sitting there like, I just want to do a 5K and see what it's like. Because I never did anything. They get shiny medals. Yay. So I was like, shiny.
Before he knew it, not only was Ira going to a lot of the events, he started to get involved in the organization itself. He took on various volunteer roles with TeamRWB, and then he started to get back in touch with his own family and friends. And in the process, Ira discovered a new outlook on life.
Something I'll say one of my highlights for TeamRWB is finishing my first 5K. They didn't have to help me. They could have just been like, okay, we're going to just run it down there. But Zach Armstrong said to me was, whether it's 5 minutes or it's 15 minutes, it's still a mile. And
it's fair to say that TeamRWB changed Ira's life and gave him new purpose. And more importantly, hope. He used to run away from his problems, but today he runs right toward them, unafraid to face his next challenge. And where does Ira think he'd be today if it wasn't for TeamRWB?
I would probably be a hermit. I would hope that I would be a hermit at best, because I think that a lot of it is my drinking was way out of control. I knew what it was. And I mean, I'm just grateful that I was part of TeamRWB. So that's how I look at it, is I'm just great to be part of the organization.
Team Red, White, and Blue was created in 2010 by Lieutenant Colonel Mike Erwin, who was in the midst of transitioning away from active duty and realized he needed motivation to stay fit. Being the self-starter that he was, he organized a team to take part in the Twin Cities Marathon that year. And from there, they were off to the races. Over the past 15 years, they've had over 250,000 veterans and family members take part in over 16,000 events across the country. They've made a huge difference in the lives of many veterans, including Ira Brownridge Jr. In today's episode, our hosts sit down with TeamRWB's founder and outgoing executive director, Lieutenant Colonel retired Mike Erwin, along with the man replacing him, Colonel retired Mike Sully Sullivan. Together, they discuss how an operation they worked on in Iraq forged their strong partnership, go through some highlights of TeamRWB's past and future, and praise Sully's daughter Sammy, who just so happened to be a guest on our show last year after winning a bronze medal in rugby at the 2024 Summer Olympics. I'm Carrie Viro-Heikes, and this is Army Matters. Cut through the noise with The Economist. Department of Defense employees have free access courtesy of the DoD libraries. Get global, independent reporting on geopolitics, trade, tech, and more to help you make faster, sharper decisions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Army Matters. I am SMA retired Dan Dailey, and I am here with my good friend,
your best buddy, Lieutenant General retired Leslie C. Smith.
Celeste. You know what I want to talk about today?
What?
Workout buddies.
Okay.
So I'm sure you've had a number of workout buddies over the years. Which one of them stands out, and who pushed you the most?
That's a great story. So when I was in college, I had a NCO, Sergeant First Class William Sanders. He was about your height, but he was like my build. Imagine that. He looked like a middle linebacker at 5'7".
I'm 5'9".
He was probably about 5'8", 5'7", 5'8". So he was a scary guy, right? So he would be like, oh, you can do another. I'm like, I'm dying, Sergeant. It's like, you can do one more. You can do one more. And then, of course, we do one more. And you walk around like this. Now, to the audience, I'm flexing. And
feeling all good about yourself.
Feeling all good about myself. And,
wow.
And he definitely pushed me the most. How about you?
Yeah. For me?
Yeah.
I was always very self-motivated for physical fitness. You know, I was the
We're talking about workout buddies. Come on.
Hold on.
Okay. Right.
So I had several workout buddies.
Which one stands out the most, bro? Come on.
I would say Sergeant First Class Buggy.
Buggy? Okay.
Buggy. His name is Buggy. We used to call him Bug.
Bugs.
Bug.
So what made him stand out? Why did he push you the most?
I loved the running. He was a good runner, and he tried so hard to beat me every morning. It just pushed me harder and harder and harder. He never did win. His goal was to, before he left the Pentagon, to go off to his new assignment, was to finally beat me on the PT test. And I stayed with him all the way to the turnaround point, and I said, Buggy, well, it's time for me to go.
Did you just beat him, blow him out?
Destroyed him.
Destroyed?
I think I ran a 10:50 that morning.
Oh boy.
Yeah. 10:50.
I don't even dream about running 10:50s, man.
So Veterans Day is just around the corner.
Yeah.
What is the most affecting Veterans Day event you've ever attended?
What's the most impactful?
Yeah, the most impactful.
I think probably it was in command at Fort Leonard Wood. I think the first year I was the commanding general, we went down to Springfield, Missouri. There are thousands of retirees in the Springfield area. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, I didn't know it either, but me and the sergeant major, we get out and start walking to talk to people. But then you start to see the veterans in the audience. And you're like, wow. I mean, World War II, Korean War, especially the Vietnam era vets, which I thought was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? What was your most impactful?
You know, I was invited to go speak at my hometown in the park.
Oh, nice.
For Veterans Day when I became the Sergeant Major of the Army. And it's like the whole town showed up.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is, like 150 people, but
it was more than 150 people.
More than 150 people. Yeah. But it really gave me, because we get a little, to be honest with you, we get a little numb to service, right?
Yeah,
I mean, because when you're in the service, we do, right? And we're around soldiers and all that is honorable. But, you don't think about it. But when you get away from an Army base and you see how community, just hometown America really does care about people who serve, that it's like a reminder that what we do is special and people appreciate it in this country. Yeah.
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 Dan, speaking of service, today's guests have brought veterans together across the country through runs and other sporting events. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Rally around the honor of service through physical activity. Yeah. Yeah.
Wearing colorful shirts.
Well, they're right here in the studio with us, Lieutenant Colonel Mike Erwin and Colonel Mike Sully Sullivan. Gentlemen, welcome to Army Matters.
Welcome.
Thanks so much for having us.
It's great to be here.
So, Mike and Sully, just to make it easier for our listeners, can you introduce yourselves and tell us where you are right now?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Mike Erwin, coming in from right outside Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
And I am Mike Sully Sullivan, and I'm down here in South Carolina, not too far from Savannah, and some very important military bases as well.
So where are you, man?
Hilton Head Island. I decided to retire where I vacationed. It's been a rough life. I ride my beach bike to the gym every day.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. You play any golf down there?
Hardly ever, because Mike is keeping me on the road as the executive director of TeamRWB.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Let's just dive right in. So, Mike, Sully, we always like to keep it light in the beginning of the flight. So late last year, we sat down with Sully's daughter, Sammy.
Yeah.
Who had just won the bronze medal for rugby at the 2024 Paris Summer Olympics.
Yeah.
And one of the things we learned in that episode is that Sammy is a huge fan of Legos.
Absolutely.
Has completed some of the most difficult kits they've made so far. For both of you, if you get Lego to design a new set of anything in the world, what would it be? We'll start with Mike.
What's really funny is that my son loves Legos, but I cannot stand them. I don't know why. It requires way too much patience for me. And I cannot force myself to sit down and follow instructions for that long. Yeah, I'd say I'd have to go with something. If I could build anything in the world, geez, I don't know. I'd go maybe with my alma mater, West Point, build something, with the combination of some chapels in the big buildings, something like that.
Yeah. They could do a whole series on the West Point buildings, right?
That could be pretty cool.
That's a good one.
But you would not find me doing it. So
no. You didn't play with Legos as a kid, though, Mike? You didn't?
No.
No?
My brother did, and people around me did, but I don't know. I was kind of weird like that. I just never had the patience to sit down.
All right, over to you, Sully.
So yeah, I actually really enjoy Legos and putting the sets together. And I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd, so everybody would expect me to say something about Star Wars. But I would actually love, and I've been looking for one, a gigantic bald eagle. Because Samantha actually gave me, in my office, there's a Captain America shield that I put together that's in my little background here for meetings. I would love to have a gigantic, epic Lego eagle, being an RWB person, that we could have on display here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are those out there? Have you seen them, or is that?
I haven't seen one, at least not. Yeah.
Maybe Lego's listening right now.
Hopefully.
I don't know if this is a follow-on question, but I could ask it right now. So Sully, your daughter is a Olympic medalist.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
So how does that make you feel as a dad?
I mean, it's, I think pride's a sin, but I'm definitely guilty. I mean, it's such a great story. I mean, I have two sons. One of them is her twin brother, who's quite the athlete himself. He ran track at West Point, but she was always my combat sport girl and was always like, why don't they have football growing up? And I was like, just wait till you get to college. You can play rugby. I played rugby in college. You'll enjoy it.
Nice.
And the next was history. But I mean, that moment, I mean, we were in the stands with like 13, 14 other family members. And we just, to this day, we still think about just absolutely losing our minds when we watched Spiff run the field to beat Australia for the bronze. Nice. It was insane.
Nice. Yeah. So Sully, let's talk about the family business and how your great grandfather started it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great story. So at the turn of the century, you did not have to go to college before you went to medical school. So he was smart enough straight out of high school to go to medical school. I think it was the University of Wyoming. Graduated. World War I is taking place. He, goes to the Army and says, I'd like to be a surgeon as an officer and go serve, in Europe and patch guys up. They're like, that's great. You have a childhood injury on your index finger. You're missing part of your index finger. So you're ineligible to be an officer and a surgeon, but we'll make you a medic and you can still serve on the front lines in Europe. So he ships off to France. And he actually ends up running into one of his medical professors, bringing a guy into a hospital, a field hospital. The professor's like, why are you not a surgeon? You were one of my best students. He's like, well, and he tells him the whole story. Short story, he gets a battlefield commission to captain there on the spot, and he serves the rest of the war as a surgeon in a hospital in France. So after that, his service was over. He went back to Butte, Montana, and was a local doctor and kind of a leader in that community for the rest of his life. His son actually started out at the Naval Academy, my grandfather, but left after his freshman year to go home and marry his high school sweetheart and immediately enlist in the Navy so he could serve in World War II. And then on my dad's side of the family, his biological father was a B-24 pilot in World War II who was killed in French Indochina. And then his adopted father also served in the Army in World War II. My dad's a Vietnam veteran. So he carried on the family business. He was ROTC. Being a sole surviving son, he didn't have to go to Vietnam, but he got orders and accepted them. And once his time was up there, he did the rest of his service to the government as a public servant, as a prosecuting attorney in Yakima County, very successful lawyer. And then while I was at school at Claremont McKenna College, I decided to go to ROTC and follow in his footsteps. I actually made a career of it. And then, as we just mentioned, the twins are that fifth generation, Jackson and Samantha, who went to West Point, graduated 2020, and are both captains.
Nice. That's pretty cool. So, Mike, how about you? Your mom holds a significant distinction up in Syracuse, where you're originally from. What is that? And how did your dad and your mom instill the value of service to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the idea of family lineage, it's interesting how service often does get passed down from generation to generation. My one grandfather served in World War II. He was in the Army D-Day +2. And then my other grandfather didn't go to World War II, but he was a firefighter for like 40 years in Syracuse. My mom was the first woman police officer in Syracuse Police Department back in 1974. And that's where she met my dad. My dad was a private, or whatever the equivalent of a private is. Eventually, he rose to the rank of sergeant on the Syracuse Police Department. So she used to be in the paper a whole lot back in like 1974 through 77. Like the joke was that she was in the paper, more in 3 years than my dad was in 30. But it's actually a very relevant and timely topic, I think, as we think about this, state of America, like the idea of servant leadership, the idea of raising your right hand and being a part of something bigger than you. It was commonplace in America, many years ago. And I think we got to fight to get some of that back.
So, Sully, when you first attended college, you had thoughts of becoming a lawyer. How did that change, and what led up to your 30-year Army career?
So I was, oddly enough, I'm a 2-year ROTC guy. So when I was a sophomore in college at Claremont McKenna College, received a letter in the mail saying they had secured a 2-year scholarship. All I had to do was go to basic training over the summer at beautiful Fort Knox, Kentucky, prove myself worthy, and I would have the majority of my school paid for. And I thought I could go about it the same way my dad did, which was use ROTC for college. And then, while I was serving my 4 years, I could, knock out the LSAT and then chase that law degree and that career. I definitely looked up to my father growing up as the Yakima County prosecuting attorney as a public figure, that he could have been probably making a lot more money as a lawyer, but it's what really kind of drove me. But once I got into the service, a few things happened. I got married right away. My oldest son is my stepson. We had the twins not too long after, and it was just one of those situations where you had the stability of the service, you had this family support structure besides your normal family. My wife was a high school teacher. She definitely supported me in everything I did. And there was a point where I was thinking about, well, I'm about 6 years into it, maybe about 7, 8 years, I decided to hang this up. But I'd always had this dream of chasing special operations. So I brought it to my wife. I was like, I think if I stay in, this is what I'd like to do. And she was 100% on board for it. This is before 9/11. I'm dating myself. She's like, anything bad ever happens, I'd want you with the best. I think that's where you should be. And I think if that's what you want to do, we would, I completely support it. So I chased that dream, made it. And I just never stopped having fun for the next like 26 odd years in the Army. I mean, it was, there's definitely some bad days, but the good ones definitely outweighed that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was on the same boat as you. I mean, I'm blessed and lucky to have that kind of support. But hey, Mike, what about you? What led you to West Point, and what was the most challenging time you ever experienced while you were there?
So we went there in 1998 to 02. So I did not come from like a very military family. Like my parents were not in the military, so I didn't have that exposure. So for me, it was very eye-opening to go there. I hardly knew the difference between like a private, a sergeant, and a lieutenant. When I showed up, it was so the learning curve was very steep. Faced a lot of challenges. Certainly freshman plebe year boxing class. We talked about swimming. We had to take survival swimming class. Those were like not necessarily very fun for me. But for sure the biggest challenge was 9/11 that took place at the start of our senior year, and things just got very serious very quickly because we knew that we might go to Kosovo or South Korea going into it, but very quickly we realized like we would be going to more dangerous places than that. And so, the challenge of trying to enjoy senior year and everything you've accomplished and you got to this point blended with the reality of what was happening in the world around us. I mean, that cognitive dissonance was very real. And so it was, just a challenge trying to find a balance between the excitement of being happy that you're getting ready to graduate with the knowledge that like we're about to, be deployed all around the world.
So you guys met each other while serving overseas. What's the first operation that you worked on together? And then what made you realize you were a good team?
So yes, first of all, so I am an intel officer. So I did 13 years as an intel officer. So I had the honor of, serving in the 1st Cav Division for my first deployment from 2004 to 2005, battles in Najaf and Fallujah. While I was there, I had a chance to work with 5th Special Forces Group. My branch manager came back and said, hey, 3rd Special Forces Group, there's an opening, you can get there. But if you go, like you're deploying pretty much like right when you hit the ground. So Sully was late 08 when he came into company command. And so, it really was when we deployed, in January, February 2009. So our relationship professionally, goes that far back. And we kind of laugh because like there's just a lot of like inside jokes about some of it. But, I'll just kind of summarize it by saying like I didn't fully understand the intel picture when we got there in January. It frustrated Sully a little bit. And so rather than trying to like strong arm me as a major to a captain, he said, hey, I got an idea. Why don't you jump on a plane, come out here to Camp Bastion, and like, let us just talk to you about what we're seeing. Right. And so just, again, could have used more forceful, leadership or, use the structure of the military, but really said, hey, come on out and spend about 36 hours on the ground. And I got to see and hear right from his Green Berets, the intel that they were collecting, which was absolutely incredible. And I got on a plane, a day and a half later, went back to Camp Brown at Kandahar, Afghanistan, and said, all right, I see things a lot more clearly now. And now, he had in me, the biggest advocate within not just our task force at Camp Brown, but really all of Kandahar airfield and all the people who I interacted with, the Brits and the Romanians and the Canadians and all the people. Like I was able to kind of paint this picture of what was happening in the Helmand province, in a way that probably no one else there could. And it was really because of the investment that he made in bringing me out there to be able to convince me, not through force, but, through influence and through knowledge.
So he special operated you.
Pretty much. That was, I think we call that, counterinsurgency. So,
go ahead, Sully.
That's exactly what it was.
So that rotation specifically was one in Afghanistan where the rules of engagement changed and you could focus on nexus targets, where if there was a tie to the drug trade supporting the Taliban's efforts, you could target that in terms of, their logistics, their networking. And what we were seeing was things had changed quite a bit between the time Mike had been there last and this rotation, in terms of a shift of operational control and some of the logistic funnel coming through, kind of matching the drug trade coming out of the Helmand province tied to the poppy harvest. And so we set up a series of operations to kind of determine where this stuff was going, where it was being, once it was harvested. And we developed a series of operations because it required a lot of support. I needed Mike 100% on board. I needed all of the intel apparatus in that country to believe the picture we were painting was the one that needed to be targeted. And the speed at which we needed to do things could be approved. It all culminated with the biggest one being our 6th Frago, where we took about 200 special operators of different kinds, Navy SEALs, my teams, my headquarters company. We had DEA fast agents, all with our associated Afghan partners, and a small bazaar that we'd identified that had 18 tons of the raw poppy harvest. They had several rooms full of armaments of different types, caliber, explosives. They had Iranian-made explosives. They had a A&A Humvee they had captured off, and they were turning it into a V-bid. So it was a big target for us. It turned out to be very successful. A bit crazy because the whole idea was that we were going to fly in, air assault in, allow ourselves to be surrounded for 3 days, and then do enough damage that we could fly back out. And again, all of this had to be based on an intel picture that I needed Mike to sell up and down the chain of command so we could get the support and assets that we needed. So that crucible right there really kind of took that first event of us trying, my group of guys convincing Mike, this is what we needed to do. And then us coming together through those 3 days of a lot of success. And our relationship literally was forged in fire, you could say. And it kind of, was something that then springboards into this new thing we're doing together.
Yeah. So for our listeners out there, 18 tons of poppy harvest translates to how much opium? I mean, how much could they make from that?
I forget. The DEA had a street value on it once it was processed that could have been in the hundreds of millions of dollars, primarily in Europe. Most of the stuff we found was just raw. They had just they cut the bulb of the flower. It leaks out this goo, and the majority of it got stored in this one place that they thought was very safe before they moved it cross border. So oddly enough, there was it looked like a big swimming pool in the middle of this bazaar. And we don't know what exactly that was used for before we got there. We filled it with this stuff, put diesel on top of it, and just burnt it for the 3 days we were there.
This is as President Obama had just announced the surge coming into Afghanistan. And so there was there's a lot of Marines that were a couple of weeks from arriving into the Helmand province. And our comment was that there's probably 50 or 60 Marines walking around today, who would not be here if it wasn't for that operation. And they'll never know it, right? But that's something we're all very confident in, that saved a lot of their lives as they were coming into Helmand.
So there's probably some Marines who are like, I take issue with that, but we really did put a dent in what they had to take into that next year.
Be prepared for what comes next. The Economist is free for Department of Defense employees, courtesy of the DoD libraries. Get global intelligence with in-depth articles, podcasts, newsletters, and more on topics from geopolitics to trade and tech. Did you know that as a member of AUSA, you have access to many benefits. From car rental to entertainment discounts, the opportunities are ample. Visit us online at ausa.org/benefits to learn more.
Welcome back to Army Matters. So let's talk about TeamRWB. Mike, what led you to creating this organization?
So coming out of my time in 1st Battalion 3rd Group in 2009, I got selected to go to grad school at the University of Michigan, studied positive psychology, resilience, and leadership. And actually one of Sully's team leaders, a guy named Rick Aloff, said, "Hey, Erwin, you're going to go to grad school and you're going to get soft." As soon as I got there, within a couple of weeks, I realized like, oh, geez, that wasn't, he might've been trying to be funny or trying to get under my skin, but that is not at all a joke. It is very difficult to have the self-discipline to go out there and put in physical training when you don't have to. And so, when I got there, it was very clear, like I needed some of that pressure. I needed some of that accountability that comes from human relationships. And I got that by signing up for the Marine Corps Marathon, the JFK 50 miler, et cetera. And I had some conversations with a woman named Jennifer Lohr who worked at the Ann Arbor VA. And she said, because I asked her, hey, like if I was to start a nonprofit organization to help veterans, like what's missing? What do they need? And a lot of the focused on like the social connection and the accountability that comes from other people and the lack of relationships that a lot of veterans had in their lives, especially combat veterans. She was the case manager for about 150 post 9/11 vets. And what she saw over and over again was a propensity to sit on the couch, to play video games, to binge watch, and to not go out into society, to not move their bodies, to not do things that are going to make them healthy. And so that was the beginning of it. And I got some family and friends together to join the board. Like, we didn't even know what a board of directors was, but we started making phone calls to people like Sully, to people like Joe Molina, to people like Gary Bartels and Chris Weidel and all these people. And they just said, absolutely, let's go, man. Let's figure this out, right? The number of people who just said, let me keep serving was unbelievable. And that just kind of like from there it just took off. We just realized like at the Twin Cities Marathon and then the Marine Corps Marathon and then these various races we were doing, people are like, what are you doing? Like, oh, hey, we're here to help enrich veterans' lives, to make their lives better. And people are like, how do I be a part of that? How do I join? And so just we grew rapidly and people just started joining from all over and becoming a part of the team and like wanting to just add energy into our mission. And it's amazing how much of that happened in 2010 through like 2014 that it was unbelievable.
So during your first event, the Twin Cities Marathon.
Yes.
When did you realize you were really onto something? I think it had something to do with pasta.
Yeah. So I've run, before then I'd run a couple of marathons, a couple of half marathons. And, everyone's always talking about it's really not even about the pasta. It's about the camaraderie of coming together the night before with everyone who's like, you know what, let's come together and kind of ease our nerves a little bit, and talk about how excited we are and what we've done in our training plan. But yeah, it was that night before when we had tons of people from Minnesota came out, and we had, veterans and service members and their families, like 60 or 70 strong from all over the country, had flown into Minneapolis for this event. And we saw how many people were there. And it was like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of people that made a sacrifice to come here for this. And when you looked at those numbers, it was like, this feels like it's something different. And this is not like a one-off, one-time event where people are like, hey, I'm going to come do this marathon and that's it.
Yeah. So Sully, let's go over to you. When did you first get involved with TeamRWB?
Yeah, so it wasn't much longer after that. I was at our Special Warfare Center in school, and I get a call from Mike. So we get on the phone. He's like, I'm establishing this service organization for veterans. It's going to be great. We're going to keep them active, And he's like, I need your help, because the way we're going to get this thing started is we're going to start, with in and around some of the largest, bases in America. You're there at Fort Bragg. I know you're busy, but I need you to do this for me, because this is great. It'll be an amazing active service for veterans that need this support. Some of the guys. So he's starting to pull on some of the heartstrings there. And then he said, and I'm telling you right now, you're going to need this more than anybody else. He goes, just you wait and see. He goes, so I'm sending you a box of red shirts. What's your address? But I mean, he leaned in on that network of guys and gals that he knew that were like going to be motivated, understood that, Mike Erwin's a visionary. He's not going to, sell you something that he doesn't absolutely believe in himself. And if he's this much fired up about it, then, you should probably get on board. So got the shirts, and it just started to exponentially grow from there. Like Mike's experience, every 5K, 10K in the Fayetteville, Fort Bragg area, you'd start out with 10 red t-shirts, and there'd be 20 red t-shirts, and everybody's like, where do I get a red t-shirt? You guys seem to be having so much fun. It's been an organization I've been a member of since the very beginning, an early leader, and it's just always there for you, no matter where you're at, when you find you're kind of where you're at in your life. So my kids have always been involved in it. You could probably see Sammy in a couple, old Facebook shots wearing the eagle, but it's always been something that's been a part of the Sullivan family life.
So, Sully, you're taking over the reins now. I mean, Mike started this thing, he guilted you in, but you've been drinking a lot of Kool-Aid here because, you got to run the joint, right? So,
absolutely.
What's up with that? Tell us about it.
A couple of years, I think, before I, was getting ready to hang it up, he constantly was, checking in on me to see, okay, what's coming up? What are you doing next? Have you thought about it next? And I was like, I don't know, Mike, I'll probably do what everybody does. I'll just go do some consulting or something. I had a friend who's in professional sports. I was like, I love team sports. Maybe I'll find myself over there, and eventually he's like, I think I know the team that you need to join full time, and it's TeamRWB. So let's be very deliberate about it. So when he knew I was kind of finishing my time, he reached out. He goes, let's use the Career Skills Bridge program, and you can be the oldest intern ever at TeamRWB. And we'll see, like, if I'll let you see under the hood and see everything that's going on, and we'll let people get to know you and see if you're going to be the right fit. So they brought me on as the chief of staff last year. And then as we came in towards the end of last year, Mike presented it to our board, and they had felt from what they had seen that I would be a good replacement for Mike, made that decision. Mike continues to mentor and teach. And, we said, the perfect opportunity would be that 15-year anniversary event, the Twin Cities Marathon that Mike just spoke about, for the two of us to run together. We'll carry Old Glory. Ideally, he'll hand it to me at the end. I'm going to make him carry it the whole time. I'm not even going to help him. But, Mike will move to the board, and we'll continue to run this thing. It's in the name as a team. I'm really excited.
So for our listeners out there too, how many active chapters does RWB have right now?
Right now, I think we're at 154 active chapters across the country. Yeah. And just north of, if you look at the 15-year history, the number of people have signed up. These aren't all the active members right now, but over 300,000, I think, is what we crested coming about this time. We were about to hit that number.
Nice.
Well, tell you what, gentlemen, we could unpack so much more here, and there's just unfortunately not enough time left for us to go over everything. But I'll tell you, listen to both of you. First of all, thank you for your incredible service and sacrifice to our country, but also to a cause, because you are gentlemen that have demonstrated the care for not just yourself, which everybody, there's an expectation for people to take care of themselves, but you really reaching out to take care of a larger community, and it has blossomed into something special. So thanks for what you do.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for allowing us the chance to have the conversation with you guys today, and for helping to spread the message. As we always remind people, like, hey, we want veterans to still keep serving and to keep showing up and take not just ownership of their own health, but the health of people to the left and the right who they've served with. It's so important that we do that.
That's good. That's really good. Okay. We appreciate you guys.
Make confident decisions with global insights. The Economist is free for Department of Defense employees through DoD libraries. Discover independent reporting on geopolitics, trade, tech, and more to help you prepare for change, manage risk, and develop strategies that stand up to scrutiny.
To all our listeners, thanks for joining us. Army Matters is brought to you by the Association of the United States Army, the U.S. Army's professional association, member-supported, Army-connected. Visit us at ausa.org for more information or to become a member. Your membership helps AUSA continue to carry out its mission, educate, inform, and connect with the total Army, our industry partners, and supporters of a strong national defense. Today's episode was hosted by Lieutenant General Retired Les Smith and SMA Retired Dan Dailey, and anchor hosted by Carrie Barrow-Heckes. Anthony Del Call is the producer and writer, and Andy Bosnack is the supervising sound editor. Ellen Toner is the content editor. Unzinga Curry is the executive producer, and the senior producers are Carrie Viro-Heckes and LaSharon Duncan. Be sure to subscribe to Army Matters wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. As you know, we love seeing stars in the Army, especially if it comes in the form of a 5-star review. AUSA's Army Matters podcast can also be heard on Reach Across America Radio on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app with the search of the word Reef. AUSA's Army Matters podcast primary purpose is to entertain. The podcast does not constitute advice or services. While guests are invited to listen, listeners, please note that you're not being provided professional advice from the podcast or the guest. The views and opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect the views of AUSA. For questions or to provide topic recommendations, email us at podcast@ausa.org. I'm LaSharon Duncan. Hope you have a great Army Day. Hooah!